This is the Daily Saints Pod with Zach and Greg.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Saints Pod. My name is Greg, and as always today joined by my good friend and wonderful co-host, Zach. How you doing, mate? You alright?
Yeah, I'm alright. Deadline day's over.
Yeah.
We are now where we are.
Yeah.
Sure.
Look,
I've seen some more positive outlooks on the whole situation, to be fair. And I think ours was probably slightly negative, but at the same time, it's just, I don't know, it's just how I feel about it. I'm not going to apologise for it. Just don't think it was a great window for us.
Look, it feels very meh, is how I would describe it. Just very, very tepid. But look, maybe we'll kick on from here the rest of the season and have a good run, and it'll all's well that ends well. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But to shelve that for today, I have gone away and gone down a rabbit hole. And so maybe, Zach, the best place to start is just at the start, right? So we saw on Friday night, as I'm sure many of you will have seen on Twitter, a French investigative journalist posting a YouTube video tearing apart the management and directors of our sister club, Valenciennes, and it was called the biggest scandal in French football. They're living a lavish lifestyle, and the club is hemorrhaging £1 million or €1 million a month. Whilst they're out partying and using private jets, and they're about to have a huge round of redundancies, and it's shameful. Now Valenciennes is in the third tier of French football, for those unaware, and obviously Sports Republic owned. The management in question, as far as I can tell from watching the video, were not directly linked to the same part of Sports Republic that runs Southampton, but they are directors and managers that were put in charge by them, right? Now, this video didn't cite any sources, was just this journalist saying that this is the case as he knows it from his sources and his time around the club. So, you know, without the additional sources, I can't verify it myself. This is his word and what he's come out and said. So that's
probably one of my only real criticisms is that we try to. I don't know if it's just my background of history degree or whatever, but whenever we try and cover things, unless I explicitly, I'm unable to, or it's just something off Twitter, which will explicitly state this is something I've read off of Twitter, we try and post our sources, especially when I do profile episodes and things. And I have no doubt that if you've written for multiple reputable news outlets, yeah, there's probably evidence behind it. It's just frustrating not having any of that sources linked. It's really easy to buy the guy's book. That's it. That's my only criticism. Is I'd have really liked to have seen more of where this has all come from, and we were looking to do something about our illustrious ownership, but there's also, I think, the worry of them being quite litigious has been brought up, and I can't fight a lawsuit. No. But there has definitely been things that we started looking into and things that we've read in the past that we were kind of well, let's see if we can put an episode together. And we kind of stepped back for a while, but then after that you fell into a rabbit hole because I watched a translated version of that video you did, and then I went to the cinema and came back and you were just dumping financial bits of data on me I was meant to understand what it means, because you're far better than numbers than I am.
Yeah. And so that's the start point. That was the trigger of this exercise, right? Big scandal, club hemorrhaging money, and the financial regulations in France on football are harsh if you breach them, right? We saw that with Bordeaux, right? They just straight up got kicked out of the league. So it's it's a point of concern. And then, in addition to that, we saw a video over the weekend. I think you sent it to me of was it Rasmus Ankerson at Giuseppe?
Yeah, I think that video's
Citing,
been knocking around for a while. I think it was potentially like when even they took them over. I don't think it's like a new thing, but obviously it's like doing the rounds when it's like, well, this is actually what people think of our club.
yeah, and it's him coming out and saying that Giuseppe are a bigger club and a higher priority than Southampton, and grain of salt. It's a press conference with Giuseppe, so it would be almost strange for him to come out and say it the other way around, right? But it's not gone down well, adding sort of fuel to the fire, and it's really, if anything, it's another knife in the back of any multi-club ownership model or suggestion thereof, because we've not seen any benefit from it, and I very much doubt we ever will. I did a whole episode on it. Feel free to go back and listen. We went into like real details about multi-club models, who they work for, why they work, and spoiler alert, none of those things came about to us. So So anyway, let's get into the digging that I did. I'm going to start with a huge caveat here, Zach. I am not a financial expert. I am not a football rules expert or lawyer. I am going purely off of the information available to me. I understand that the rules, regulations, and accounts are much more complicated than the basics I have tried to break them down to. So let's get that out of the way. Big asterisk. But I took a look on Transfermarkt and pulled in our transfers in and our transfers out. Now, like I said, it's not quite as simple as, well, we sold so-and-so for 50 million, so that's 50 million in the account. These payments are always like spread across many years, which bleeds into different financial parts and different costs and incomes. So it's not quite as clear cut as that, but it is a good basis to understand the position of the club, right? It is, at a glance, it's going to be in the ballpark of where we're at. So it's good. And obviously, not all of the transfer fees are made public either. So this is either the ones that have been made public or like the best source for them. I think that's enough caveats. I think I've covered myself quite well there. So in 2025, we made 6 sales and we bought in 7 players, to be fair. So 6 out, 7 in. Obviously, we know the sort of mixed success rate at the moment with Azaz, Yander Fellows, Leo, Damien Downs, Quasi, and Maz Roslev coming in for paid fees, right? Not including loans. So our total sales for the year were 121.6 million, but our total spend was 59 million. So as a ballpark figure, substantially up. Yeah, like we made more money making sales than we spent, and then we take it back a year and we look at the outgoings and the incomings. Now this was the Premier League season, to be fair, so we had 5 outs: Charlie Alcaraz, Sekumara, Lianco, Chaleta Char, remember him, and Perot, and substantially more ins. Now, with the caveat that a couple of these ins were like obligations off of the back of loan deals, so that was like Harwood Bellis for 23 million down to 17 million. I think because of the way it was structured and the way they like became our players at the point of the like loan expiration, at the point of promotion, some of it might fall into the previous financial year. But, the total was 41.6 million out and 123 million in. So, more out than in. That's like a nearly 80 million net loss on expenditure. But bearing in mind, it was a 70 million profit this year, right? So that almost like cancels each other out. Is where I'm getting to, and obviously all PSR regulations cover across 3 years. We'll get into that in a minute. Very numbers heavy episode. Apologise for that. I'll pause from discussion in a minute. So in 2023, which was of course the first relegation season, our first season in the Championship, we sold lots of players, 12 in total, and only bought in for paid fees. The players we bought in Ross Stewart for 9 million and Shay Charles for 22 million. And we sold Lavia, Livramento, Will Prowse, Teller, Salisu, Gineppo. We got a loan fee for Charlie Alcaraz. We sold Orsic for 2 million. We got an additional loan fee for Bella Kotchap, a loan fee for Chilechar, and a loan fee for Torpool. So not all full sales, but all resulting in income in, because their loan fees were getting that money as sort of transfer budget. So we got effectively 187.2 million in incoming money from outgoing players, and we spent 22 million. So that's a sizable difference, right? That's 160 million in profit. So across the three seasons that would account for a total spend of 204 million pound and a total sales total of 350.4 million. So 150 million pound profit across 3 seasons on transfers. So
where is that money, Greg?
Pause there before we get into the accounts and talk about that. Zach, what? How are you feeling about that?
How do I feel about that? Where is all the money that's being reinvested? Like, I understand that it's a business. I understand you need to make profit off of it. That's a lot of profit to make and then not reinvest. And I swear, if they turn around and be like, yeah, but we built like an outdoor area where you can get a beer, and we built like a fun house and a pub. It's like, for 100 million, like I could have built a small city if I really tried. Like, admittedly, the infrastructure would be great, but
now that's the really crazy thing right now. Right, an additional caveat, because the episode is full of them. Because when you get into accounts and contracts and rules, they are deliberately complicated, right? They're complicated for a reason. They're complicated to avoid, or to attempt to avoid, loopholes like Chelsea selling hotels to themselves to make money. They are complicated deliberately to attempt to avoid Leicester, who last season managed to avoid getting a points deduction in the Premier League, because although they were technically in breach of the Premier League spending rules, for one of the seasons they were in the Championship, and it was deemed that they were out of the Premier League's jurisdiction in that period, so they were unable to punish them at that point, which they broke the rules. Right? So that's why they're complicated, because they need to be to try and prevent exploitation and loopholes. But that said, the caveat being that when you get relegated from the Premier League, it produces a deficit in your funds, right? Like, you are not receiving as much television money anymore. You have to drop the price of your tickets accordingly. Big ticket items like your hospitality packages, the price has to drop like substantially compared to what you are able to sell them for the Premier League. Otherwise, they just don't sell. So it's estimated that a season in the Championship, the difference that it will cost you in turnover is about £40 million. Now we got relegated. Bearing in mind the first season of these figures we were a Championship club. Admittedly, that had dropped down from the Premier League. So we had a season of that heightened turnover, and this season we have 40 million less than that. And the transfer numbers alone, effectively counteract that. And some, right? Like, it's really crazy. So then I dug a little deeper, or not really even deeper, as part of being a publicly traded company. Saints publish their accounts every year. So in April 2025, they published their accounts for the year ending 2024, right? So we haven't got the year ending 2025 yet. That comes out next year. But in that year, they turned a profit before interest and tax overall, with all of the club's turnover and even with the complicated payment plans of players and transfers. Like, just the general overview of the club, they turned a profit before tax of 36 million, which means that across 2 years they were at a loss still of 34 million. Now, obviously, then a year in the Premier League will have bolstered that and presumably turned that a second year into profit. I believe that year's profit was 6 million, but we haven't got the full accounts published yet. So that's profit, right? And we talked about ambition, and for a long time on this show, our viewpoint's been, well, they do, they've made us financially stable and they do invest stuff and we've got this, but actually the club is turning profit, like sizable profit, without real investment in, you come to a window like this, and actually this is the biggest question of the episode for me, is more than sort of where has the money gone. Like, that kind of is what it is. If we're bolstering to make a big push if we get back in the Premier League, so we have the budget available to us, then I can see an argument for that. Yeah, which brings me to my biggest question of the episode, which is, we heard in December from Johan Spors that it wasn't going to be a busy transfer window for a number of reasons, but the main reason he stated was that the club are not in a position to do that. Now, we're in profit across, so we were we're at a loss of something like 20 million, taking into account the 6 million profit from the fully unpublished book and whatever we've got left to come from this year.
Mm-hmm.
By Championship PSR rules, you are allowed to lose over a 3-year period £49 million. And under Premier League PSR rules, and obviously for a year of that, we would have fallen under those rules. And if we go up, they're the sort of rules we'll be coming under again. You're allowed to lose 105 million over 3 years. Now, by crunching those numbers and coming to the terms we're at, we shouldn't be anywhere near those numbers over 3 years, right? Because, obviously this year will have taken a hit because of dropping to the Championship, but the previous 2 years turned a profit. So why aren't we in a position to invest? And like I say, if that's because they are saving it for the summer for either a big rebuild to push to the Premier League as staying in the Championship, or to free up that money so that we can heavily invest in and strengthen in going up, that's fine. But it just comes back to the whole communication thing, right? Of, come out and say that.
Yeah, and I think, bear in mind, they also supposedly on the side of all of this have this like investment plan for the area around St Mary's, right? They want to turn the whole area into an economic hub, and realistically, the guy backing it all is in Solok. Like, he built like a cable TV company into like a massive empire. That's very, very different to building anything, anything else successfully. And I feel like trying to build this successfully, like a football club successfully, clearly isn't going the way. They're also still trying, right? I can't remember if it was in Romania. They kept trying to buy the top club there. I don't know if they were successful in the end. It might have collapsed. I can't remember. I remember it collapsed at one point, but yeah, it begs a lot of the question, where is all of this going? Where is the focus going? Is who is in charge of what's actually going on?
Yeah.
And from like and I know that again, this is going to talk about multi-club model again, but like if it's because they have to retain money because they're losing it elsewhere, like in France, or because they're trying to bolster the position in Giuseppe, I don't care. I'm not a supporter of either of those teams. Like,
Yeah.
this is my hometown's club, and this is where you get into the larger issue around football. And it's apt that this is just after the whole Strasbourg thing, right? You've got Liam Rossigna, manager of Strasbourg, that's then been moved on to Chelsea. They've replaced him with Gary O'Neill, I think it was, which doesn't feel like a like for like swap for me. And now they're kind of picking and choosing the players they want to push back to Chelsea or take to Chelsea, and realistically, that entire club is now just being a feeder team to and that's probably potentially how Giuseppe felt a little bit with us with Masuki had a solid season there last year, but he's come back to us now. We had that guy that we
Come
bought
back to us. He was our player. We bought him.
Yeah, but that's my point. Is that but he immediately went out on loan. You've got Tanaka, I think, is another player that's still at Valencia, sorry, who is in their sort of like youth squad, who was a Southampton player. He was brought in alongside Masuki. You've got the Brazilian striker who never played for us but was a Southampton player, got sold for 2 million. Potentially he could be flipped for 20. I think
I could see
Alfie
that
was questioned about it.
They rejected a huge bid for him.
And again, there'll probably be stuff built in there to help Southampton, but it's just it all seems just a bit weird, right? And then it's like the outcrying of what's going on over in France is kind of, and again, like I'd love to be able to just like read more about it. But, it's really sort of like showing an article in a video of some like dodgy Senegalese businessman is not handy when I'm like, well, I'd rather just read it. Like I can use an auto translator, etc.
And then you just like piece two and two together, right? And you take them hemorrhaging money and their poor management decisions to get to that point, and weird sales like Ronnie Edwards and Adam Armstrong to some degree.
For under double figures. That's the mad thing about it for me. Is like you pointed out yesterday that the amount of money that's been paid for some players in the Championship that are probably less valuable. It very much feels like I don't think that they think we can get promoted. I don't know if they just thought it would be luck. I thought they invested a bit in the summer, but when we talk about investment, like okay, we've had better spending power than some of the other teams, but like the reason that Leicester is in a problem is because of just years of financial mismanagement, right? With us, it very much feels like it's almost like they're trying to cover up the financial mismanagement, and maybe there is more to it. But the amount of transfer fees we get, like you'd love to just see that reinvested back into the squad. And if it means that we pay a bit above the board, like we've seen it for years, we've seen it since like they let Van Dijk go and reinvested all that money into just dross, really. It's I think that's one of the reasons yesterday just felt so odd, because it's like, where did they find the name of this bloke? Like, how did they find him? Like, how long have they been scouting him? Was it just literally finding a striker that's available? Why did we accept the first bid? What's going on behind the scenes? And obviously, we're not necessarily going to get all of the answers. But when you are expecting people to just consistently prop up your business through paying them, you kind of owe them a little bit. And that's where it's the misunderstanding of what football means to people. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help them diffuse this, what is going to be outcry at them that is only growing, right? The Sports Republic out movement, whatever you want to call it, it's getting louder constantly, right? Originally, it's a bunch of people that just, I don't think, would be happy with any level of management, that any level of ownership a club had, unless they're owned by a conglomerate that are quite happy to inject billions of pounds in. Like, that's fine to them. But at the same time, you can't ignore like some of the shady, weird stuff going on. And we're not the only club, and we won't be the last. But it's just that it's incredibly frustrating. Everyone knew we needed more. Everyone knew. Everyone knows. Everyone's riding the party line. Communication through the top to the bottom seems to be a bit weird.
Entire culture of the club seems weird, and has been reported as such. And it's Yeah, and look, and after this digging, what it really boils down to me is that we try and remain sort of level and composed on just as people, you and I, and that's what we present on the show, and we take our opinions based on evidence, and what that has meant for the longest time is our position has been pretty categorically like, yeah, they're probably not great owners, but they're owners that are not the worst that it could be. They're not doing what happened at Sheffield Wednesday, or any of this sort of crazy stuff, or with Gal before us, or Rupert Lowe, who stripped us down and left us completely potless. Like, but with all of this, sort of what the conclusion I've come to is I don't think I'm actively Sport Republic out, but I'm definitely not not actively Sports Republic in either, right? Like, I'm definitely, I would say, passively Sports Republic out. I'm not going to be going around brandishing any banners, but my opinion has firmly changed, I think, is where I sit, right? Is that
Yeah, no,
sort
I've
of a
noticed it
reasonable
just in
assumption?
our conversations in the last week or two, and again, it's because of the amount of time we put in and to it all, and again, just a generally disappointing window. Like, yeah, okay, we shipped some of the quote unquote dead wood that will make a lot of people happy, but some things are just a little bit bizarre here and there, and just the comms out from the club in general has just been a bit terrible, and it's weird to kind of figure out where that's from. And I'm sure we'll probably get like another summer interview where Dragan has another sit down with Alfie and promises like a caring grandfather that everything is going to be fine and that he'll only he'll find investors if they need it. But that doesn't stop the fact that if anything does go wrong, these people usually never come out with much of an issue, do they? Like, look at what
No,
Lowe's up to nowadays. He's not exactly strapped for cash, is he? So
no,
yeah, it's
exactly.
I think
No.
it's very, I think it's wise to be cautious. It's wise to be cautious. It's good to pay attention to what is actually happening around the club, right? And again, like we spend far too much time thinking about it than other people, and it's why we've been able to pick up on patterns. And it's not just a disliking them because like they didn't buy a 25 goal like a week striker every window, which again, like Golden Unicorn, it is like systematic patterns of behavior, systematic rising of prices here, there, and everywhere, and just a general degradation of what for a lot of people is a very, very important part of their lives, part of their culture, part of the culture of the town of town city of the surrounding area. You could see all of that on display at the South Coast Derby and why it's important. And yeah, instead, the only time we really seem to see much of them is when they decide to fire a manager because of repeated criticism. And I think that the obvious way to look back on is that when they lost the director of football and Russell Martin was kind of left in the lurch and had I don't know, what was it, like Tony Pullis's brother doing all the scouting, and we brought in
It was
some of
Tony
the
Mowbray, I think, right?
like some of the worst, absolutely shocking transfers we've had. Probably one of the worst windows we've ever had. And yet it was going to get better, and yet they brought somebody in that they trust, but I don't know if I trust their judgment anymore.
No.
We said we'd give it this season, right? We said we'd see how we do. Supposedly the buck stops with Spores, and I'm wondering if the reason that he stated that is that's what the company line is, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just a lot. There's a lot to process, a lot to think about, and it's thank you very much for doing all of the digging, because I'd start looking at those numbers, mate, and they'd fall out my head pretty quick.
You know that I instantly booted up Excel and was in my element, so that's me sorted. But look, thank you. That's all we got time for today. So thank you, mate, for joining me and putting up with my very numbers heavy episode. And thank you everyone for listening. Look, let us know in the comments, in the socials, how are you feeling about it. I think it's pretty clear we're feeling pretty down, even off the back of arguably a good run of results, right? 7 points in 3 games. So I think it's a pretty strong vibe heading into at least the weekend. So we'll see. But yeah, let us know. We're Daily Saints Pod, absolutely everywhere on Blue Sky, TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Let us know. Give us a like and a subscribe while you're there. It goes a long way to helping us out. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about something, I'm sure, much more positive. We'll find something upbeat to waffle on about. But until then, everyone, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you then.
This is the Daily Saints Pod with Zach and Greg.